everybody, it's Michael. Welcome to New Victory Gardening. It's August now and it is hot. It feels like monsoonal weather here. I think the humidity is double what it normally would be, and of course that's when your fruit becomes ripe. So today we're gonna talk about a perennial tree. I'm standing in front of it. It's an apple tree, and so based on gardening for a while and looking at what works and what hasn't, you kind of develop some favorites. Like one of my favorites is my peach tree, which is just beyond there. Man, oh man, a good ripe peach is one of the best things of summer, and I really enjoy it, right? And so you have things that you really enjoy. But another aspect of it is things that are really useful. And so there's just a couple trees, I want to say 3 trees that are just really useful to have. They're easy to grow. They are very versatile. They're drought tolerant, they're easy to manage, and so in my opinion, my humble opinion and gardening experience, I don't want to say the number of gardening experience because I don't want to date myself, but it's been something like 30 years, right? And so this apple tree is a tree that I would recommend. If you could only plant one tree and you like apples, then I will most certainly recommend planting an apple tree. Or if you're thinking about it, you're planning your garden out and you only have enough space, you only have enough time, or you only have enough, I don't know, any limiting resource, and you can only plant one perennial, an apple tree should definitely be on your list and for consideration. And so today we're going to spend our time talking about apples, and I'm going to harvest my apple tree. My apple tree is actually ready to harvest, and so we'll talk about, I'll kind of go through harvesting it, and you can kind of get an idea of what it's like having an apple tree. But before I do that, let me not leave you hanging, and I'll try to make a video. I have 2 of the 3 I would recommend. So the other I would recommend is a grapevine. So if you can plant a grapevine of any kind, just pick a grape variety that you like and plant it. It's drought tolerant, it's very versatile, it's easy to grow, and it produces a great versatile fruit very reliably, right? And so grapes are very popular. I'm in Northern California, as you know, it's like a hub of winemaking, and so there are thousands upon thousands of acres of grapes planted in Northern California, and so because of that, there's some nuance to how you manage grapes, but I'll deal with that in another video. And so the other that I would recommend, strangely enough, is a lemon tree. So specifically a lemon tree. So if you live in a place that's warm enough, I want to say zone 9 or higher, where it doesn't freeze in the wintertime, you can plant citrus. And so a citrus tree is, specifically a lemon tree, is extremely versatile. And so there's going to be a thread amongst those 3, right? So the evergreen, lemon, this deciduous apple tree, and the same with the grapevine. So why do I say that? It's because you can take an apple and you can eat it. It's very healthy. It tastes good. You remember the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? I'm not sure. Do people use sayings anymore? Are like sayings like dying out in society, and instead we use memes and social media? I don't know, but anyway, I've remembered them from my grandparents. And so an apple a day keeps the doctor away is a good saying, right? Eating fruit, fresh fruit regularly is a good thing, right? So it tastes good. You can press this into cider. You can press grapes and make grape juice, and you can make lemonade from lemons. You can take it one step further and you can ferment apples and grapes into an alcoholic beverage, right? So one's wine and the other cider, fermented apple cider. And so you can use those. You could take it a step further. So the way that the old folks used to make vinegar at home was you take grapes or apples and you make wine, and then you put that wine in an open container, you cover it with a cloth and let it be exposed to the air, and a different set of microbes will convert the alcohol into acetic acid, and that's what makes vinegar. So vinegar you can use in cooking, but vinegar is also an antiseptic. So you can use vinegar to help you clean things and to reduce the microbe population. And you can also use vinegar in canning to make things more acid. Well, with a lemon, you can use a lemon for the same purpose, because lemon is very acidic. I think it's a little more acidic, just slightly. One's 5%, one's actually, I'd have to check on that. I know lemons come in around 3 pH, so they're on the acidic side. But vinegar, I'm not sure. Maybe about the same. Anyway, so you can use that to help you clean things, right? And you can use it in canning to preserve things, because when you're water bath canning, you need to increase the acidity. Those of you who know about canning. So you have something here that I can eat. I can use it to make a beverage to make times more enjoyable. I can use it to make vinegar. Pretty straightforward, right? And then I can use the vinegar to clean things and to can things to help my longevity. And there's other things you could do. Those are, to me, are the main things. And I'll hint at a few other things. You can make apple butter. You can make lemon meringue pie. You can make grape jelly. I love grape jelly, right? You can make apple pie. You can use these crops just for a variety of things. So if you had one tree, now for me, the one that I like is this apple tree, and this is a gala apple tree, and so it sprouts right in the middle of summer. And so that's the other thing. They're so versatile and they've been bred so thoroughly. Thank you to our plant breeders, right? The unsung heroes of food, that you can have apples that produce as early as, I want to say late June or July, and they'll produce all the way until almost November. And that really depends on the timing of things, like the timing of the plant, the timing of your seasons and what zone you live in. But they could be very productive, right? And so they can cover the full growing season and provide you with all these useful products. And so it's just a thought for consideration, that if you can only plant one, which I very much recommend for resiliency, getting a perennial of some sort, a berry vine or a grapevine or an apple plant, or just something that grows season to season and you don't have to replant every year. Apples comes to the top of my list. I really like them. So before we go on into this apple, this it doesn't really look like Gala, huh? Looks more like Golden Delicious, right? One of Gala's parents. But I think where I planted it in the climate here, it's like a unique apple. It doesn't harvest when Gala harvests. But I tell you right now, the sticker on the tree said Gala apple. Yeah, you have to watch with those stickers sometimes. I think somebody played a joke on me and replanted another one. But this one harvests right in the middle of summer, and so I can get the apples and process them and be done by fall. And so, okay, so let's go look at my grapevines right quick. I'll set up another video there just with an issue, and then we can get started just going through this apple tree and picking some fruit and seeing how it looks. Okay, here we come to my grapevines. As you can see, maybe you can't see, they're almost ripe. They are almost ripe. And so let me taste one. The benefit of growing grapes is that you can, like, I've never sprayed these, and so they're just in great shape as far as spraying, right? Wrong. Look at them. My leaves are in such horrible condition, and they're covered with these tiny insects. So right at the time these grapes are ripening, these are muscat grapes that are supposed to ripen into July or into mid-August. Right at the time they're supposed to be ripening, these insects have overwhelmed my grapes. And so what do? Have I lost my crop? Like, you see how the leaves are dying? Take some guesses, write it in the comments. What do you think has caused this? Have you seen it before? I'll say it's not a disease. It's a little tiny insect. And you know, not cool when you're just about to get a harvest to have your plants overwhelmed, right? I have tried everything. I will go down what I've tried, and I think I'm gonna try to salvage this year, and I'm gonna have to take an action on these grapes just to save them. But this is what you see sometimes, especially if you're growing in an area where there's a lot of the crop grown commercially, right? You'll just have these problems. I had like 3 great years with these. 3 just really good, great years. See the bugs all scattering? 3 just really great years. And then these bugs just appeared, and now they almost destroy my crop every year. I'm in a fight with them every year. And so we'll talk about salvaging crops. A part of the channel, a part of what I thought would be helpful and good to talk about is just resiliency, is building resiliency. So you don't always have to lose your crop if you have an insect or a disease or a problem. You can manage it and get it to something useful. So give me about a video and we'll talk about how to save your grapes and to make useful things out of them. Here she is. So I've pruned my apple tree to be kind of like a backyard gardening style. And so you'd have to talk with your extension service or talk with a master gardener about what that means. For me, in my space, I planned about a 20-foot radius, 15 to 20-foot radius around every tree. And I've pruned the tree annually. So I heavily prune it. I prune it in the summer and the spring so that it stays around 10 foot tall. So 10 foot tall or less, and pruned into the space that I've given. And this tree still makes probably 2 5-gallon buckets of apples or more every year, and it satisfies all our needs. So you can actually produce a lot in a small space. Just give it a try, and I'll try to link some guidelines to help you get started and some places where I've gotten good information, not just information, but good information that can help you in your journey for your space and where you intend to do your planting, right? So did I line it up right? Maybe close. There's an apple. I want to line it up to where I can pick an apple right up from where my head is. And so that is how my gala apple has produced. And I swear that looks like a Golden Delicious. But I tell you right now, Golden Delicious produces at a different time of year. And Gala produces at a different time of year. And so where this tree falls, I don't know. But it still makes good apples. And so why don't we do a bit of harvesting and we can continue the discussion. Talk about a few things while I harvest. First thing, notice my dog. He just loves apples. I have to kind of keep him corralled away from the tree, but he's 4 years old, so now that he's getting a little older, he understands the concept of getting ripe, and so he's able to hold himself at bay until the fruit gets ripe. And so as I'm looking over the plant, there's a couple ways you can harvest, and so I try to harvest in a way that will fit within a working schedule. And so I'm not trying to harvest the entire tree today. I'm just trying to harvest what's ripe today. So I'm cruising around the tree. I'm looking and taking stock of what's there. And the apples that appear to be ripe are the ones that I am picking and harvesting. So at this point, you have to see one good thing is that when you prune to a backyard size and you keep the height of the tree low, you don't have to have a ladder to harvest it. So I'll only use a ladder to harvest this tree at the very end with some fruit at the very top of the tree, but the vast majority, like 80% or better, of the fruit is all at ground level. I can harvest it right from the ground very quickly. So. Over the years harvesting this tree, what I've noticed is it's pretty consistent. Mid-July, maybe late July, usually the fruit is ready every year. This year though, we had just a very, very hot summer. We spent a couple of weeks above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and it just affected all the trees. They kind of did a pseudo dormancy, but because I had mulch down and because they were receiving water regularly, they didn't shed their fruit. But I did notice that the fruit took longer to ripen, and so I'm about a week or two behind when I would normally begin harvesting this tree. And the fruit is good, but it's not as sweet as what it had been in previous years. And also the average size of the apples is just a little bit smaller. Usually this tree gives good big apples that are very sweet. And this year I noticed that they're sweet, but they're not as big as what they normally would be. And so season to season, you kind of see these variations. It depends on a lot of factors, right? Like, what's the condition of the tree for disease resistance? What's the condition of the water the tree's getting? Is the right amount of fertilizer and available nutrients? How's the mulch working, and how's the soil environment? They all affect apples, but they're still good. And so in years like this, I would tend to eat the apples. I always eat them, but I'd be pushing them more towards products. And so I'm looking to make can and freeze apple butter this year, and I like to give that away to folks because they enjoy it. And I also want to make a lot of apple sauce and give that away and keep some. And I think I might press some cider. It depends on how many apples I have left over, but I may try to press a gallon of cider and maybe give an experiment for a jar or two of apple jelly. So when the apples are smaller and you have to deal with that, you can make some products. We also like to peel and freeze apples so that we can use them later in the year in like apple tarts or apple crisps or cobblers that folks enjoy. And so we usually try to hold over and keep some apples for that as well. All right, just like that, we have our harvest for the day. This container takes, I want to say, like a quarter bushel, maybe a third of a bushel. It's not quite a half, but the way that I harvest is I'll harvest this out once a week or once every 3 or 4 days until the tree fully ripens all its fruit, and I just keep it in a refrigerator. I have a refrigerator. Another way would be to process this. So I have a plan for these apples, is actually to eat some and to make apple butter out of the rest. And so you can have a plan for how you harvest the tree, but beautiful apples. And I got about, like I said, what, quarter bushel, maybe a third, something like that. So now time has flown, I've harvested, and I'm actually ready to end this video because I know it might get a little lengthy. I just love apple trees. I could talk about them a lot, so I'm trying to keep my mouth shut a little bit. But there's a couple considerations that we should talk about before I end the video. And so why don't we go look at them? It was a habit to plant apples as a food source for folks moving and coming into different areas, and so there's apple festivals. There's hundreds of varieties. I don't know if it's hundreds, but it seems like just hundreds of varieties of apples. Some varieties are dying out and others are being born because we have new diseases and new climate conditions, and the breeders breed apples that can deal with that. And so it's not a bad thing. I usually try to avoid genetically engineered stuff. Try to keep with just old-fashioned bred things that are resilient. And so that's a good discussion at your nursery or with your extension service or with your county master gardener service of what variety of apple is going to serve your needs. So when do you want to harvest the apple, and how resilient the apple tree is going to be against disease, right? So if you plan those things before you plant, you'll have just a successful and a so much better experience. And, here in Sacramento County in California, there's a master gardener open garden. And so at that open gardening, they have just a ton of activities, and you can access the master gardeners to get all your questions answered. And so I did that for my grapevines. They had grapes there that you could taste. They sold cheap cuttings that would grow into plants. So I paid less than $10 for all those 4 grape plants that I have. And I got to taste them before to find the ones that I like the best. And so they do the same for apples. And so I would look into it. But like everything, if you look at my plant, there's a couple issues, and it's pretty funny, but it's not funny at all. It's funny in a way that makes you cry, right? But so I got like about 3 or 4 years of greatness out of this tree. It's just a beautiful tree. It responded well to pruning. It produced good, healthy fruit. The biggest issue that people have with apple trees is actually a coddling moth. It's the little moth that makes the worm that eats up the apples. And so that's what I planned for when I first got the tree. And it was just kind of like a stroke of luck. And so I had the traps out, and I tried to look and monitor the tree and never had that big of a deal. Well, my wife actually helped me a great deal because she bought a bug trap. So it's a bug trap that has a fan and a UV light that you leave on overnight. And that trap is particularly effective at attracting moths. So the moths that lay the eggs that become the worms are being trapped in that trap, like organically. I don't even have to spray. And so I minimize my spraying on this tree. I still put 1 trap out, but this year I didn't even put a trap out, and I have virtually no effects from coddling moths, right? So I'm patting myself on the back. I'm going, it's great. Wow, how did I get so lucky? And then, of course, if you look right beside me here, here's a dead branch. It's a dead branch with a dead apple. So why did this branch just die all of a sudden, right? Is it because I pruned right here and I didn't manage my pruning well? Is it something else? And why are branches so on this plant? I have a dead branch here, right here, and I have a living branch that's growing and doing perfectly fine, right? This just happened this year. So I noticed in the growth that some branches produce and have apples on them, and some of the branches were dying, and it was like this random selection of branches that were choosing to die on my plant. And so I went through and I looked at some available resources and was able to identify what the problem is, and I'm in the process of creating a plan to manage it going forward, right? So that springs up, and I'll talk about diagnosing things like that in another video. And so the other thing that sprung up, which let's see if I can even get to it. So I noticed on my main branches, away from where I pruned, right? And this was about 2 years ago. So I've been managing it for a couple years. I noticed this. And so right off of the main stalk, you see this right here. I had these looks like a growth or something, right? It's just, you could tell that my plant's been affected because a healthy branch looks like this. It just doesn't have any of these odd growths coming off. And so some of my main branches towards the bottom of the tree just developed these growths. And so I was like, oh no, that can't be good, right? What is causing that? And so once again, I looked up and found what I think it is causing it. It's a type of aphid, it's a woolly aphid. And so I've been managing, the best that I can, right, to keep this tree. It's a beautiful tree and it's still in production. And so I don't want to toss it aside, but I think it's a fact of life. Let me get out of this plant. Let me get to a place where I can film. Okay, I think it's a fact of life that you're gonna have some issues, right? If you have your plants in any length of time, there's going to be some issues. If you grow in a place where there's any kind of farming happening, you're going to have some issues, and that's okay. You can see that your plants can still produce and survive, and that you can be adaptable to that. But being aware of it and seeing it so that you don't let it overwhelm your tree is definitely an important consideration. If you look at even my peach tree here, I had a lot of peach leaf curl on this tree because we had a wet spring. But now by summer, it's all gone. It's like virtually all gone. And this tree will be ready to harvest in about a week. And so the point of the message is don't give up, right? There's some resources out there. There's gardening communities and channels that you can watch. And there's ways that you can make your harvest, right? So that you can offset. And it helps you grow as a gardener. And so with that, I think I'm going to end the video. Happy harvesting. It is the month of August, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.